She paid for an old man's groceries, never knowing his grandson was Baltimore's billionaire Mafia king. It was only $4.18. The kind of money most people lose beneath a car seat and never think about again. But for Claire Donovan, that small act of kindness would put her face on a private surveillance network, draw the attention of the most feared man on the East Coast, and turn her ordinary life into a war she never chose. Outside, freezing rain covered East Baltimore in black glass. Inside a tired grocery store, an elderly man stood trembling at the register while strangers watched him count empty pockets. Claire understood that humiliation. What happened next is not only a story about danger wealth and forbidden loyalty. It is about the price of kindness in a world where every favor becomes a debt. Stay until the end. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. $4.18 should have disappeared into the night with the freezing rain. Claire Donovan believed it had. By the time she reached her apartment in East Baltimore, the old man from the grocery store had already become one more face in a long day filled with tired faces. She remembered his trembling hands, the expensive watch beneath his worn sleeve, and the strange warning about a grandson who never left debts unpaid. Then, her key caught in the swollen frame of her front door, and ordinary problems reclaimed her attention. The apartment was on the third floor of a narrow brick building that had once been painted white. Years of weather had stripped the color away in long gray scars. The hallway smelled of boiled cabbage, damp plaster, and the radiator that worked only when it felt merciful. Claire leaned her shoulder into the door until the lock turned. Cold air greeted her from inside. She flicked the light switch. The bulb above the kitchenette came on with a weak yellow glow, revealing a room small enough to cross in 6 steps. A couch faced a television that no longer connected to cable. A folding table stood beneath the window, buried under unopened envelopes. The only decoration was a framed photograph beside the microwave. Her mother sat in a hospital garden wearing a blue scarf over her head and laughing at something outside the frame. Claire looked away before the memory could settle. She removed her wet coat and hung it over the back of a chair. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. Another message from Mr. Pritchard, her landlord. "Rent is now 11 days overdue. I need a payment by Friday." Claire opened her banking app. $37.12. She stared at the number until the screen dimmed. The $5 bill she had given the old man had not changed her life. It had not made rent impossible. Rent had already been impossible. She heated a can of tomato soup and ate it standing over the sink. Rain tapped against the window. Somewhere below, a couple argued in the street. Their voices rose, broke apart, then disappeared beneath the sound of a passing bus. Claire washed the bowl, placed it upside down on a towel, and checked the deadbolt twice before going to bed. Across the city, men she had never met were opening every closed door in her life. They found her address first, then her work history, then her hospital debt, then her mother's obituary. By midnight, Claire Donovan existed inside a file on Roman Bellini's desk. 3 nights later, the Blue Lantern was nearly empty. The bar sat 2 blocks from the harbor, tucked between a closed seafood market and a pawn shop with steel bars across the windows. The sign above the entrance had once glowed blue. Now only the letters BL and N still worked, leaving the name fractured in the dark. Inside, the air carried the permanent scent of beer-soaked wood, fryer grease salt, and old smoke trapped inside the walls from years before the city banned cigarettes indoors. Claire moved behind the counter with a damp towel in one hand. She had been working since 4 in the afternoon. It was almost 11. At the far end of the bar, Tommy Wilkes slept with his forehead resting beside a half-finished glass of bourbon. 2 construction workers played pool under a green lamp. In the corner booth, a retired dock worker named Leon read the sports page with a magnifying glass. The owner, Patrick Doyle, had disappeared upstairs hours earlier with a bottle of whiskey and a betting sheet. Claire wiped a ring of water from the bar. Tommy. The sleeping man did not move. She tapped the wood in front of him. "Tommy, I'm calling your sister." His head rose slowly. "Don't do that. Then drink the water I gave you. It tastes like water. That is usually how it works." Tommy grumbled and reached for the glass. Claire turned toward the register. A shut-off notice from the electric company sat folded inside her coat pocket. She had read it enough times to know every word. Service would be suspended Monday morning unless she paid the overdue balance. She had considered asking Patrick for an advance. Then she remembered the collection agent who had visited the bar the previous week. Patrick did not have money to lend. Patrick barely had money to lose. The front door opened. Cold air moved through the room. Claire looked up automatically. 2 men entered first. They wore dark wool coats cut close through the shoulders. Neither looked toward the bar immediately. Their eyes moved across the mirrors, the windows, the restrooms, and every person in the room. The pool balls stopped clicking. Leon lowered his newspaper. A third man stepped through the door. He was taller than the others, lean rather than bulky, with black hair cut short and a face composed of hard lines. His charcoal overcoat was open over a dark suit. No tie, no visible weapon, no hurry. He did not need either. The room seemed to recognize him before Claire did. One of the construction workers set his pool cue against the wall. The other reached for his coat. Leon folded his newspaper with trembling hands. Roman Bellini crossed the floor. Claire knew the name. Everyone in Baltimore knew it, though most people pretended they did not. Bellini Maritime Holdings controlled a large section of the harbor. Their cranes lifted containers from ships that arrived from every major port along the Atlantic. Their construction companies rebuilt neighborhoods the city had ignored for decades. Their restaurants filled entire blocks near the inner harbor. Those were the businesses people could discuss in daylight. The rest belonged to lowered voices. Union leaders who changed their votes after private meetings. Politicians whose campaigns survived because Bellini money arrived through clean foundations. Men who disappeared after interfering with cargo that did not appear on official manifests. Roman reached the bar and sat on a stool. One of his men remained near the door. The other took a position beside the hallway leading to the kitchen. Claire placed the towel beneath the counter. "What are you drinking?" Roman looked at her. His eyes were darker than she expected. Not cold exactly. Cold suggested an absence. His attention felt present, precise, and controlled. "Nothing." Claire nodded toward the empty room. "Then you picked the right place." A slight movement touched the corner of one guard's mouth. It vanished when Roman glanced toward him. Roman turned back to Claire. "Claire Donovan." It was not a question. She kept both hands on the bar. "You know my name. I do. Should I know yours? You already do." Claire studied his face. Then she remembered the old man at the grocery store, the cashmere coat, the silver watch, the promise that his grandson never left a debt unpaid. "You're Arthur's grandson." For the first time, something shifted in Roman's expression. It was small, but she saw it. "You remember him? He was standing in front of me for 10 minutes. 8 minutes and 43 seconds. Claire stared at him. "You timed it. I watched the footage." Her shoulders stiffened. "The grocery store footage." "Yes. You pulled security footage because your grandfather bought milk." "My grandfather disappeared from a 6-man security detail." Roman's voice remained low. The men behind him did not move. He walked 12 blocks through freezing rain without a coat suited for the weather. For 47 minutes, nobody in my organization knew where he was. Claire remembered Arthur's confusion at the register, the way he had searched the same empty pocket again and again. Her anger softened around the edges. "Is he all right?" Roman watched her closely. It was clear that he had expected another question. He developed a fever that night. The doctor treated him. He is home now. What happened to him? Roman rested his hands on the bar. A pale scar crossed the back of his left hand. Vascular dementia. The words landed more quietly than everything around them. Some days he knows exactly who he is. He can remember contract numbers from 20 years ago and the names of men who have been dead longer than you have been alive. Roman's jaw tightened. Other days he thinks it is 1989. He believes my father is waiting for him at the docks. He tries to leave the house to buy coffee milk or cigarettes for men who no longer exist. Claire looked down at the worn wood between them. Her mother had once awakened at 3 in the morning and tried to dress for a nursing shift she had not worked in 11 years. Claire had argued with her. She had corrected every detail. The year, the hospital, the diagnosis. Her mother had only become more frightened. Claire had learned after that. Do not fight the place their mind has taken them. Meet them there, then guide them somewhere safer. "I'm sorry," Claire said. Roman did not respond immediately. The sympathy seemed to make him more uncomfortable than fear would have. "He remembered you," Roman said. Claire raised her eyes. What, he remembered the woman who paid for his groceries? I was standing right there. He did not remember the cashier. He did not remember the store. He remembered your face and your name. Claire felt a strange pressure in her chest. I only covered the difference. Roman reached inside his coat. Both of Claire's hands tightened against the edge of the bar. One of the guards noticed. Roman did too. His movements slowed. He removed a thick white envelope and placed it on the counter. The paper was clean and heavy, too elegant for the blue lantern. It looked like it belonged on the desk of a lawyer, not beside a bowl of stale pretzels. What is that, $25,000? Claire looked at the envelope. The room seemed to become quieter, though nobody had spoken since Roman entered. Cash, he continued. No tax record, no obligation, no contact after tonight. $25,000. Her mind betrayed her by calculating immediately. Rent, the heating bill, the credit card she had used to pay for her mother's prescriptions, the collection notices from St. Agnes Hospital, a reliable car, new boots, food that did not come from cans, sleep. For one brief second, the envelope did not look like money. It looked like rest. Claire forced herself to look away. You came across the city to pay me for $4. I came across the city to settle a debt. There is no debt. In my family, there is always a debt. Then your family needs a better hobby. Roman's gaze did not leave her face. You need the money. The words struck harder than they should have. Claire's expression changed. Roman continued before she could answer. Your rent is 11 days late. Your power is scheduled for suspension Monday morning. You have $37 in your checking account. You owe $68,914 in medical debt. The air left Claire's lungs. Roman's voice never rose. Your landlord has filed 2 previous notices against you. You work between 58 and 64 hours each week. You have no savings, no health insurance, no vehicle. Your mother died 3 years ago after a 22-month course of treatment for ovarian cancer. Stop. Roman became silent. The old anger rose through Claire's chest, hot enough to burn away her fear. You went through my life. I verified who had contact with my grandfather. You investigated me. Yes. You pulled my bank balance. Yes. You read my mother's medical history. I read the debt record attached to the estate. Claire leaned across the bar. You do not get to stand there and talk about her like she was a number in one of your shipping files. Roman's expression did not change, but his hands became still. I did not speak about her disrespectfully. You spoke about her because you could. She pushed the envelope back toward him. Roman looked at it, then at her. Take the money. No. You are choosing pride over survival. I am choosing not to take cash from a man who has strangers dig through my life. This money does not purchase access to you. You already took access. The words held between them. One of the guards shifted his weight. Roman did not look away. Claire pressed 2 fingers against the envelope and pushed it farther. You knew exactly how much I had before you came in here. You knew my rent, my debt, my mother's diagnosis. You knew how desperate I was supposed to be. You are desperate. I am poor. Her voice lowered. There is a difference. Roman's eyes narrowed slightly. Claire could hear her own pulse. She knew what men like Roman Bellini were capable of. She knew that courage did not stop bullets and pride did not pay funeral costs. Still, she could not reach for the envelope. Not after he had placed every painful part of her life beneath the bar lights and presented money as the answer. Roman tapped one finger against the paper. Everyone accepts something, not from you. That is an emotional distinction. It is the only kind that matters. He studied her as though she had answered a question he had not asked aloud. Do you believe accepting this would make you belong to me? I believe men who count favors the way you do never give money away. This is repayment. I did not sell your grandfather 5 minutes of dignity. Roman's face went still. Claire continued. He was embarrassed. People were staring at him. I knew what that felt like, so I helped. You expect me to believe you wanted nothing. I wanted the line to move. Roman almost smiled. It did not soften him. It made him more dangerous. You lie badly, then we finally found something I cannot afford. For several seconds, neither spoke. The clock above the bottles clicked forward. Tommy remained perfectly awake now, staring into his water. Roman picked up the envelope and slipped it inside his coat. Claire released a breath through her nose. Good night, Mr. Bellini. He did not stand. My grandfather believes he owes you. He does not. I decide which debts exist in my family." Claire folded her arms. "Maybe that is why everyone is afraid of you. Fear is useful, not if it is the only reason people stay." Something changed in Roman's eyes. Not anger, recognition, the kind that comes when a stranger touches a bruise hidden beneath expensive fabric. Roman rose from the stool. He buttoned his coat with one hand. "I was told you were intelligent, by the people who stole my bank records by your former nursing supervisor." Claire froze. She had worked as a hospital aide before her mother's condition worsened. She had left because caring for both patients and her mother had become impossible. Roman had gone farther into her history than she realized. "You need to leave." Roman inclined his head. His expression returned to its unreadable calm. "At least now I know what you want." Claire stared at him. "I told you I do not want anything." "No." His gaze moved across the cracked walls, the stained mirror, and the taped sole of her shoe. "You want the right to say no." Roman turned and walked toward the door. His guards moved with him. The cold entered again as the door opened. Before stepping outside, Roman looked back. Claire stood behind the bar with her chin raised and both hands trembling where nobody could see them. For one moment, they remained fixed on each other across the dim room. Then Roman disappeared into the Baltimore night. The door closed. Sound returned slowly. A pool ball rolled across the table and struck the rail. Tommy exhaled. Leon unfolded his newspaper, though it was upside down. Claire gripped the edge of the bar until the shaking in her fingers stopped. Patrick Doyle appeared at the top of the stairs. His shirt was open at the collar. His face had lost all color. Was that Roman Bellini? Claire picked up the towel. Yes. What did he want? She wiped the clean section of the bar again. To pay a bill. Patrick came down 2 steps. "Did you take it?" "No." The silence that followed was almost reverent. Patrick stared at her as if she had admitted to stepping in front of a train. "You told Roman Bellini no." Claire looked toward the closed door. "I did." Patrick rubbed one hand over his mouth. "You have no idea what that man is." Claire placed the towel beneath the counter. "I know exactly what he thinks he is." Outside, Roman's black sedan waited at the curb. Ethan opened the rear door. Roman entered without speaking. The city moved beyond the tinted glass as the car pulled away. Wet streets reflected neon signs and broken streaks of red and blue. Ethan sat across from him. She refused. Roman looked out the window. "I was there. Do you want me to leave the money at her apartment?" "No. We could clear the debts without telling her." "No." Ethan watched him carefully. Roman Bellini did not repeat himself. He did not chase people. He did not explain his decisions. Yet he had remained at that bar longer than necessary, speaking to a woman who possessed nothing he could not purchase. "Then the debt remains open," Ethan said. Roman turned his head slightly. "Yes." His phone vibrated. A message from Dr. Shaw appeared on the screen. Arthur had refused dinner again. He continued asking whether Claire had enough money to eat. Roman closed the message. "Have someone watch the bar." Ethan's expression hardened. For her protection, Roman looked toward the rain sliding across the glass. For observation. The answer satisfied neither of them. Across the harbor on the upper floor of a private club, Victor Sorrento received a photograph from a detective on the city payroll. The image showed Roman Bellini entering the Blue Lantern. A second image showed Claire behind the bar. Victor sat beneath the warm light of a brass lamp dressed in a midnight blue suit. Silver threaded his hair at the temples. A cigar burned untouched between his fingers. His lieutenant stood beside the desk. "We ran her name, Claire Donovan, 28, bartender, no record, no family left in the city." Victor studied the image. "Is she sleeping with him?" "No sign of it." "Business. Nothing connects her to Bellini Maritime." Victor enlarged the photograph. Roman's face was turned toward Claire. Even in a still image, his attention was unmistakable. Victor had known Roman for 17 years. He had watched him bury allies, destroy competitors, and sit through his own father's funeral without shedding a tear. Roman did not cross Baltimore at night for bartenders. Victor placed the cigar in the ashtray. "Find out why he went there." His lieutenant nodded. Victor kept his eyes on Claire's face. "Roman Bellini does not make unnecessary moves." Outside the club windows, the harbor cranes stood against the black sky like iron crosses. At the Blue Lantern, Claire locked the front door, unaware that one billionaire had just failed to buy her gratitude, while another criminal empire had begun asking why. By morning, Claire had almost convinced herself Roman Bellini would lose interest. Men like him did not spend time thinking about women who poured cheap whiskey in failing bars. They moved money ships, politicians, and bodies. Claire had refused his envelope. He had accepted the answer. Whatever curiosity had brought him to the Blue Lantern would eventually be replaced by something more important. That was what she told herself while walking home through the pale gray light of dawn. The black sedan parked across from her building made the lie harder to believe. It sat beneath a bare sycamore tree with its engine running. The windows were dark enough to reflect the street instead of revealing anyone inside. Claire slowed. The sedan did not move. She crossed the street and entered her building without looking back. From her third-floor window, she watched through a narrow gap in the curtains. 5 minutes later, the sedan pulled away. The next day, another car appeared outside the Blue Lantern. Different model, same dark windows. On Saturday morning, a man in a wool coat sat inside the diner across from her apartment. He drank the same untouched coffee for nearly an hour while Claire ate toast at the counter. She did not know whether Roman had assigned the surveillance or whether someone else had begun watching. That uncertainty followed her everywhere. She checked reflections in store windows. She memorized license plates. She began taking different streets home from work, though every route seemed to contain the same black vehicles and silent men. At night, she heard footsteps outside her apartment and waited beside the door with a kitchen knife in her hand. Nobody knocked. On Thursday morning, Claire carried 2 bags of laundry into a 24-hour laundromat on Eastern Avenue. The place was nearly empty. Rows of machines spun beneath fluorescent lights. A television mounted in the corner played a morning news program with the sound turned off. Claire loaded her work shirts into a washer and counted quarters into the metal slot. She chose a plastic chair near the back wall, pulled a paperback from her bag, and tried to read. She had reached the same paragraph 4 times when the bell above the entrance rang. Cold air swept through the room. Claire looked up. Roman Bellini stood inside the doorway. He wore a dark wool coat over a black sweater. No guards entered behind him. He carried nothing. His polished shoes looked absurd against the cracked tile floor. Claire closed her book. "Do you own this place too?" Roman walked toward her. Not yet. She looked past him towards the street. "Where are your men close enough? That is not comforting. It was not intended to be." Roman stopped beside an empty washing machine. Its spin cycle caused the metal lid to tremble beneath his hand. Claire kept the paperback in her lap. "If this is another envelope, save yourself the trouble." "It is not." "Then why are you here?" "My grandfather refused breakfast." Claire blinked. Of all the answers she expected, that had not been one of them. Roman continued. "He believes you gave him your last $5. He thinks you have no food. I have food. He does not believe me. That sounds like a family problem. It became your problem when he began asking for you by name." Claire glanced toward the turning machines. A red shirt pressed against the glass vanished beneath the water, then appeared again. "What do you want me to do?" Roman reached into his coat. Claire's body stiffened before she could stop it. He noticed. His hand emerged holding a black card. He placed it on top of her book. A silver telephone number had been embossed across the center. No company name, no address. "I own a restaurant near the inner harbor," Roman said. "The general manager resigned 2 weeks ago." Claire looked at the card. "You want me to manage a restaurant. I want you to accept legitimate employment. You watched me refuse cash, so you turned the cash into a salary. You said you did not want charity. I also said I did not want anything from you. This is not from me. It is a position with Bellini Hospitality." Claire lifted the card between 2 fingers. "Who owns Bellini Hospitality?" Roman said. "Nothing. That is what I thought. The salary is $90,000. Health insurance begins immediately. Retirement contributions begin after 30 days. Claire let out a quiet laugh. "You memorized the benefits package. I approved it. You created this job for me. The job already exists. You changed it for me." Roman leaned slightly closer. "I am offering you a way out of a place that is collapsing around you. The Blue Lantern is still standing, barely. It is my choice to stay." Roman's eyes settled on her face. You confuse suffering with independence, and you confuse control with help. The words struck the same place they had touched at the bar. Roman looked away first. For several seconds only the washing machine spoke. Claire placed the card back on her book. Arthur needs someone to tell him I'm fine. Let him hear my voice. Roman's attention returned to her. You would speak to him, yes. He removed his phone and made the call. A nurse answered. Roman gave a short instruction, then handed the phone to Claire. Arthur's voice came through faint and uncertain. Claire, it is me. Did you eat? I did. What toast and eggs? That was a lie. She had eaten half a piece of dry toast. Arthur lowered his voice. Roman worries too much. Claire looked at Roman. He watched her with an expression she could not read. I noticed. You should let him help you. I'm thinking about it. Another lie. Arthur seemed satisfied. Good girl. The call ended. Claire handed the phone back. Roman placed it inside his coat. You handled him well. He was worried. Most people correct him until he becomes angry. Most people care more about being right than being useful. Roman studied her for another long moment. Call the number. Claire picked up the black card. Then she slid it into the pocket of her coat. Roman's gaze followed the movement. I did not say I would accept. You kept the card. I do not litter. He almost smiled. The expression disappeared before it fully formed. Call before pride becomes self-destruction. Claire stood. My laundry has another 40 minutes. Roman looked around the laundromat. So does mine. You have laundry here, no, then you should leave. He did. The bell rang above the door. Claire remained standing until his dark figure disappeared beyond the steamed glass. She reached into her pocket and touched the edge of the card. For one dangerous moment she imagined calling. $90,000, health insurance, a warm apartment, a life where every bill did not arrive like a threat. Then she remembered Roman reciting her bank balance with the calm precision of a man reading cargo weight. She left the card in her pocket. 4 days passed. She never called. On Monday night, snow began falling over Baltimore. By closing time, the sidewalks had turned white and the harbor wind cut through every seam in Claire's coat. Patrick had gone upstairs before 10. Tommy had left early. The last 2 customers stumbled into a waiting cab shortly after midnight. Claire locked the front door and cleaned the bar alone. At 12:40, she carried a heavy bag of garbage through the kitchen and pushed open the steel door leading to the alley. The cold struck her face. A single yellow security light burned above the door. Snow drifted through its glow. Claire dragged the bag toward the dumpster. A scraping sound came from the shadows near the brick wall. She stopped. 2 men stepped into the light. They did not look like Roman's guards. Their coats were cheap. Their faces were restless. One man rubbed his jaw repeatedly as if his teeth hurt. The other held a folding knife beside his thigh. Claire released the garbage bag. It struck the ground with a wet thud. You are blocking the door, she said. The taller man smiled. Bellini's bartender. Claire took 1 step backward. I think you have the wrong person. We watched him visit you. The shorter man moved toward the street, cutting off the open end of the alley. We heard he offered you money. Claire's hand moved toward her coat pocket. The black card was still there. The tall man noticed, calling him, My phone is inside. That was careless. Claire looked at the steel door behind her. It had locked automatically. There was no handle on the outside. What do you want? The man with the knife tilted his head. We want to know what Roman Bellini wants. He wanted to thank me for what I helped his grandfather. The shorter man laughed. Men like Bellini do not visit women because they are grateful. Claire's heart beat hard against her ribs. The security light hummed above them. Snow melted in her hair. I refused him. That makes you more interesting. The tall man came closer. Claire looked toward the dumpster. A broken beer bottle lay beside one wheel. She shifted her weight. The man followed her gaze. Do not make this difficult. He reached for her. Claire moved first. She grabbed the bottle by the neck and swung it toward his face. He threw up one arm. Glass cut through his sleeve. He cursed and seized her wrist. Claire drove her knee into his thigh. His grip loosened. She twisted free and ran toward the street. The shorter man caught the back of her coat. The fabric tightened across her throat. Claire spun and struck him with her elbow. He staggered, but the taller man hit her across the cheek with the back of his hand. Pain exploded through her face. The alley tilted. Claire crashed against the dumpster. Her palm struck wet metal. Blood filled her mouth. The knife opened with a sharp click. The tall man stood over her. "You should have taken the money." He raised the blade. A dark shape moved from the mouth of the alley. The attacker disappeared from Claire's vision. A body hit brick. Bone cracked. The knife fell into the snow. Roman Bellini stood between Claire and the two men. He was not wearing an overcoat. His suit jacket had opened, revealing a shoulder holster beneath it. The taller attacker lay against the wall, holding an arm bent at an unnatural angle. The shorter man stared at Roman, his face emptied of color. "Mr. Bellini." Roman stepped toward him. The man raised both hands. "We were only asking questions." Roman struck him once in the stomach. The man folded. Roman caught him by the throat and drove him backward into the wall. The impact shook snow from the fire escape above them. Claire pushed herself upright. Roman's fingers closed around the man's neck. His face held no rage. That frightened her more. He looked calm, efficient. The man kicked against the wall, clawing at Roman's wrist. His movements became weaker. Claire saw the moment Roman decided to kill him. Roman. He did not react. She pressed one hand against her bleeding cheek. "Roman, stop." His grip remained closed. "Roman." This time his eyes shifted toward her. The man in his hand made a broken sound. Roman released him. He collapsed into the snow, coughing and pulling air into his lungs. Roman crouched beside him. "Go back to Victor Sorrento." The man froze. "Tell him Claire Donovan is not a message." Roman's voice remained quiet. "She is not a bargaining piece. She is not a door into my house." The attacker tried to speak. Roman leaned closer. "If anyone follows her again, your family will bury a closed casket." The man nodded wildly. Roman stood. "Take your friend." The shorter man dragged the other attacker toward the street. Neither looked back. Silence returned to the alley. Roman turned toward Claire. Blood ran from the cut near her cheekbone. He removed a white handkerchief from his pocket and approached. Claire flinched. Roman stopped. His hand remained suspended between them. The movement in his face was brief but unmistakable. Regret. He held out the cloth without coming closer. Claire took it and pressed it against her cheek. "They came because of you. Yes, you knew someone was watching me, I suspected. That is why you had cars outside my apartment. Yes, you made me visible." Roman looked at the blood on her face. "Yes." The absence of an excuse sharpened her anger. "You do not get to call this protection. I am not calling it anything. You followed me. I assigned security without telling me. You would have refused. That was my decision." Roman's jaw tightened. "The men who attacked you intended to take you alive. They would have questioned you until they believed you had nothing left to tell them. I know what they intended. No, Claire, you do not." She stepped closer. "I know they wanted you, not me." Roman became still. "I was the bait because you kept coming back." His eyes darkened. "You are right." The answer stopped her. Roman looked toward the alley entrance. A black sport utility vehicle waited at the curb. Ethan stood beside the open rear door. "You are coming with me." Claire laughed once. It hurt her cheek. "No, your apartment is compromised. I will stay somewhere else. They know your work schedule, your address, and your route home. You knew those things first. Yes, you are no different from them." Roman's gaze hardened. "I am the reason you are still standing. You are also the reason they were here." The words settled between them. Roman did not deny them. Snow gathered across his shoulders. "You can hate me from somewhere secure. I am not going anywhere with you." "Claire." The warning in his voice was soft. She reached into her pocket and removed the black card. Roman looked at it. Claire held it toward him. "I did not call. I know. I do not work for you. I know. You do not own me." Something passed through his expression. "No." "Then stop deciding where I go." Roman looked toward the blood soaking the handkerchief. When he spoke again, the anger was gone. So was the patience. "You may hate every decision I make tonight. You may fight me every mile to the estate, but I will not leave you on this street so Victor Sorrento can send better men tomorrow." Claire stepped back. Roman moved forward. He did not grab her roughly. He closed one hand around her wrist and guided her toward the waiting vehicle with a grip that allowed no escape. Claire resisted. "Let go." "No, Roman, not this time." Ethan opened the door wider. Claire pulled against Roman's hand. You cannot drag people into your life and call it protection." Roman stopped beside the vehicle. His voice lowered. "I did not drag you into my life." He looked at the blood on her face. "I brought my life to your door." For the first time, she heard something beneath his control. Not guilt exactly, something heavier. Roman helped her into the vehicle. The armored door closed with a quiet seal. Baltimore vanished behind dark glass. Claire sat rigid against the leather seat while Roman took the place across from her. The interior was warm, silent, and large enough to feel like another room. She kept the handkerchief pressed to her cheek. "I have a shift tomorrow." Roman removed his phone. "No, you do not." Claire stared at him. "What did you do?" "The Blue Lantern is closed. You cannot close someone else's bar. Patrick Doyle owes $300,000 to a lender controlled by my company." Her stomach tightened. "You bought his debt. I already owned most of it. You planned this. I prepared for the possibility that your workplace would become unsafe. You destroyed my job." Roman's attention lifted from the phone. "I removed an unsecured location. That place was mine to leave." He looked at her for a long moment. The vehicle moved through the sleeping city. Streetlights passed over his face, revealing him in fragments. "You are right," he said. Claire had expected another order. The admission unsettled her more. "It was yours to leave, then turn the car around." "No." Roman looked back at the phone. Claire pressed herself against the seat. "You apologize like a dictator. I was not apologizing. At least you are honest." 20 minutes later, the city fell behind them. The road narrowed between dark trees. Snow-covered stone walls extending along both sides of the property. Heavy gates opened before the vehicle. Cameras turned toward them. Beyond the walls stood a mansion overlooking the black water of the Chesapeake Bay. It was less a home than a fortress carved from gray stone. Men with concealed weapons waited beneath the entrance lights. Claire stepped from the vehicle. The front doors opened before Roman reached them. Inside, marble floors reflected the chandeliers overhead. Paintings hung in gold frames. Fresh flowers stood on tables no one appeared to use. The entire house was beautiful. Nothing in it felt alive. A man in a white medical coat approached. Roman gestured toward Claire. "Dr. Shaw will examine your face." Claire did not move. "How long am I staying until Sorrento's people are no longer a threat? That could mean anything. It means you stay until I say otherwise." Claire looked up at him. "You saved me from being kidnapped so you could do it yourself." Roman's expression hardened. "You are not a prisoner. Then I can leave." "No." She gave him a bitter smile. "That clears things up." Dr. Shaw led Claire into a bright medical room. He cleaned the cut, closed it with narrow strips, and gave her an ice pack. He asked no questions. When Claire returned to the hall, Roman waited at the foot of a wide staircase. He led her upstairs to a guest suite overlooking the bay. A fire burned beside a large bed. New clothes filled the wardrobe. Food waited beneath silver covers on a table. Claire walked toward the door after Roman entered. She turned the lock. Nothing happened. Roman stood in the hallway. "The bedroom can be secured from the corridor. You said I was not a prisoner. You are not. You locked the door from the outside." Roman's eyes held hers through the narrowing opening. "There are guards on this floor. For me or against me, his hand remained on the door. Tonight, there is no difference." The door closed. The lock clicked. Claire stood alone in the warm, beautiful room with snow striking the windows and armed men moving beneath them. Inside her coat pocket, the black business card pressed against her side. She had refused Roman's money. She had refused his job. Now she was sleeping beneath his roof behind a door only he could open. The lock remained silent beneath Claire's hand. She tried it once more slowly this time, as though patience might persuade the mechanism to change its mind. Nothing happened. Beyond the windows, snow swept across the Chesapeake in long white sheets. The bay had disappeared beneath darkness, leaving only the faint reflection of the bedroom fire against the glass. Claire turned away from the door. The room was warmer than any place she had lived in years. A deep bathtub waited behind a marble wall. The bed looked soft enough to swallow a person whole. Inside the wardrobe, dresses, sweaters, coats, and shoes hung in perfect rows. Someone had guessed her size correctly. That detail frightened her more than the guards. She opened the first drawer. New underclothes lay folded inside. Claire slammed it shut. Roman had not simply brought her somewhere safe. He had prepared a life for her before she agreed to enter it. She crossed to the small table near the fireplace. Beneath the silver covers sat roasted chicken potatoes, vegetables, and bread still warm from the oven. Claire had eaten almost nothing that day. Her stomach tightened at the smell. She lifted the tray, carried it to the hallway door, and placed it on the floor. Then she returned to the wardrobe, removed nothing, and washed her own shirt in the bathroom sink. She hung it over the heated towel rail. It was a ridiculous gesture. The room contained clothes worth more than her annual rent, yet Claire slept in an old undershirt because it was the only thing in the house that belonged to her. Morning arrived without sunlight. At 7, the lock clicked. A woman in a black dress entered carrying a breakfast tray. She appeared to be in her 60s, with silver hair pulled into a tight knot and the controlled posture of someone who had spent years pretending not to hear private conversations. "My name is Margaret," she said. "I manage the household." Claire remained beneath the blankets. "Do you manage the locks too?" Margaret set the tray on the table. "Mr. Bellini ordered the door secured for the night. Roman orders a lot of things. That is generally how this house functions." Margaret pulled back the curtains. The estate emerged through the falling snow. Stone terraces descended toward a frozen garden. Beyond them, the bay stretched beneath a low gray sky. Armed guards moved along the outer wall. Claire sat up. "When can I leave? Mr. Bellini will discuss that with you." "I was asking you." Margaret turned. Her expression remained polite, but something human moved behind it. "I do not have the authority to answer." "Does anyone hear?" Margaret looked toward the closed door. Only one person. Claire dressed in the jeans she had washed the night before. The fabric was still damp. She pulled on her work shirt and ignored the wardrobe entirely. When she entered the hallway, 2 guards stood outside. One was young, broad-shouldered, and visibly uncomfortable, meeting her eyes. The other was Ethan Mercer. He wore a dark suit and held a tablet beneath one arm. Claire recognized him as the man who had sat across from Roman in the vehicle. "Good morning," Ethan said. "Is it? That depends on your expectations. My expectations include doors opening from both sides." Ethan's face remained neutral. "Mr. Bellini is in a meeting. Then I will speak to him when it ends. You are free to move through the east wing, the library, the dining room, and the gardens with an escort." Claire looked at the guard beside him. "An escort. For security." "Of course." She walked past them. The young guard followed. Claire stopped. He stopped too. "What is your name, Daniel? Daniel, do you enjoy following women to breakfast?" His face reddened. "No, ma'am." "Then stay here." Daniel looked toward Ethan. Ethan gave a small nod. Claire continued alone. She spent the morning learning the edges of the house. The estate had been designed to impress guests and repel enemies. Long corridors connected rooms filled with old paintings, dark wood, and polished stone. Cameras hid inside smoke detectors. Heavy doors divided each wing. Several windows were made from glass too thick to open. There were no family photographs in the main rooms. No shoes left beneath tables. No newspapers folded beside chairs. The house looked occupied but not lived in. Claire found the kitchen shortly before noon. It was larger than the Blue Lantern, with steel counters, double ovens, and enough refrigerators to serve a hotel. 3 cooks worked beneath bright lights while Margaret reviewed a clipboard. Claire opened a cabinet. One cook looked at her. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for bread. Lunch will be served in 20 minutes. "I do not want lunch." The cook glanced at Margaret. Margaret closed the clipboard. "Miss Donovan, the staff prepared sea bass. I want toast. We can prepare it." Claire removed a loaf herself. "I know how." She placed 2 slices into an industrial toaster. The staff watched as if she had walked into a church and climbed onto the altar. Claire leaned against the counter. "Do people eat in this kitchen? Staff does?" Margaret said. "What about Roman? Mr. Bellini takes most meals in his office." A pause followed. "Mr. Bellini's grandfather eats in his room. Alone, his nurses remain with him." The toaster clicked. Claire placed the bread on a plate. "Where is he?" Margaret's expression changed. "You should ask Mr. Bellini. I am beginning to see a pattern." Claire carried the toast to a small table near the back door. She had taken 1 bite when Roman entered. He wore a navy suit and spoke quietly into a phone. Ethan walked beside him. Roman ended the call when he saw her. His gaze moved over the damp jeans, the worn shirt, and the plain toast. "There are clothes upstairs. I saw them. None fit, I did not try them." "Why? Because I did not ask for them." Roman looked toward Margaret. "Leave us." The staff moved quickly from the kitchen. Ethan remained. Claire looked at him. Roman said, "You too." Ethan followed the others. Roman removed his suit jacket and placed it over the back of a chair. "How is your face still attached?" "Dr. Shaw said the cut will heal." "Good. Now unlock the front door." Roman sat across from her. "Sorrento's men have been identified, and they are being questioned." The calmness of his answer chilled her. "Questioned how?" "You do not want details. You keep making decisions about what I want." Roman's jaw tightened. "The men in the alley were hired through an intermediary. Until we identify who provided your routine, you remain here. You had people following me. The information could have come from you. It did not. You sound certain." "I am." Claire set down the toast. Why Roman held her gaze. "Because the men I assigned to you are still alive." The words were quiet. Their meaning was not. Claire leaned back. "I want to see Arthur." "No." "Why not?" "He had a difficult night. I only want to know he is all right. He is under medical supervision. So was my mother." Roman's expression shifted. Claire continued. "Doctors can keep someone breathing. Nurses can keep someone clean. That does not mean the person feels safe. My grandfather is safe." "Then why did he walk 12 blocks through a storm?" Roman's hand closed around the edge of the table. The change was almost invisible. Claire saw it anyway. "That failure has been addressed. You punished the guards. I replaced them. That is not what I asked." Roman stood. The chair moved across the tile with a low scrape. "My grandfather is not your responsibility. You made him my responsibility when you used him to follow me into a laundromat. I offered you employment. You used his fear to pressure me." Roman stepped closer. "You refused money, you refused work, you refused protection. Every option I offered became an insult, because you never asked what I wanted." His eyes darkened. "What do you want, Claire? To go home? That is not possible. Then stop pretending I have options." Silence spread through the kitchen. Roman looked at her as if anger were a language he understood better than honesty. When he spoke again, his voice had lowered. "You can walk through this house. You can use the grounds. You can speak to anyone on staff. You may call whoever you choose. Until I know who ordered the attack, you do not leave the property." Claire stood too. "That is imprisonment with good furniture. It is survival, for you maybe." She picked up her plate. Roman watched her carry it to the sink. "You will have dinner in the dining room tonight." Claire turned on the faucet. Was that an invitation? No. Then I will make toast. She left him standing beneath the white kitchen lights. For the next 3 days, Claire refused to become comfortable. She walked the estate before sunrise and memorized every camera. She learned that the west wing remained locked. She discovered a service staircase connecting the kitchen to the second floor. She found a greenhouse filled with winter roses, an indoor pool nobody used, and a chapel with dust on the pews. Daniel followed her at a careful distance whenever she entered the garden. Claire stopped asking him to leave. He looked embarrassed enough already. Roman appeared rarely. She saw him through glass doors speaking with men in dark suits. She passed his office late one night and heard raised voices inside. The words were indistinct, but one name carried through the wood. Victor Sorrento. Another evening, Claire watched 3 vehicles arrive after midnight. Men entered the house carrying metal cases. They left before dawn. No one explained anything. No one needed to. The estate operated on silence. Meals appeared at exact times. Doors opened before Roman reached them. Staff members lowered their voices when he entered a room. Even the guards seemed to breathe differently around him. Claire began to understand what Arthur had meant at the grocery store. Roman worried too much. His concern had become architecture, stone walls, cameras, weapons, locked doors. On the 4th morning, Claire woke before 6. The room felt too warm. She dressed, stepped into the hall, and found Daniel asleep in a chair beside the wall. His head rested against the paneling. One hand remained near the weapon beneath his jacket. Claire walked past quietly. The kitchen was dark when she entered. Only the lights beneath the cabinets were on. Snow pressed against the windows. The staff would not arrive for another hour. Claire filled the kettle and set it on the stove. She had just reached for a mug when she heard a shuffling sound behind her. An old man stood in the archway. Arthur Bellini wore a burgundy robe several sizes too large. His white hair had not been combed. One slipper was missing. His eyes moved across the kitchen without recognizing it. Maria Claire became still. Arthur took another step. "Maria, where are you?" His voice carried a rising edge of panic. Claire placed the mug on the counter. "Good morning, Arthur." He looked at her. "You are not Maria, no. Where is she?" Claire remembered Roman saying Arthur sometimes believed it was 1989. She did not know who Maria was. Correcting him could make the fear worse. "She stepped outside," Claire said. Arthur looked toward the windows. In this weather, she wanted to check the road. His breathing quickened. "The trucks will be waiting." Claire kept her voice calm. "What trucks, Pier 9? Arthur searched the room. "Where is my coat? Carlo will be there already." He never checks the manifests. He trusts those fools at customs. He turned toward the hallway. Claire moved around the kitchen island but kept several feet between them. "The harbor is closed." Arthur stopped. "What?" "The ice shut it down. The harbor does not close. It did today." Claire pointed toward the windows. Snow covered the garden. Arthur stared outside. The weather gave shape to her lie. "The Coast Guard called an hour ago," Claire continued. "Nobody is unloading anything." Arthur's shoulders lowered slightly. "Carlo will be angry. I told him to go home. You spoke to my son." Claire felt something cold move through her chest. Carlo Bellini had been Roman's father. He had been dead for years. "Yes," she said softly. "He knows." Arthur looked at her again. "Who are you, Claire?" His brow furrowed. "The grocery store." "Yes, you bought the milk." "I did." He reached for the nearest stool. Claire pulled it out before he lost his balance. Arthur sat and rested both hands on the marble counter. They trembled badly. "Coffee," he whispered. Claire poured hot water through the grounds she found beside the machine. She added cream and 2 spoonfuls of sugar. Arthur accepted the mug. He closed his eyes when the warmth reached his hands. For several minutes they remained quiet. The kettle clicked as it cooled. Snow touched the glass. Arthur took a small sip. "You should not be here." Claire leaned against the opposite counter. "I agree." A faint smile crossed his face. It vanished quickly. He locked the door. "Roman." Arthur looked into his coffee. "He locks every door." His voice sounded different now, stronger. The confusion had not disappeared completely, but something sharp had returned behind his eyes. "He thinks walls make people safe." Claire watched him carefully. "Do they?" "They keep enemies outside." Arthur lifted the mug. "They also keep everyone else from leaving." Claire thought about the bedroom lock. "He is afraid of losing you." Arthur's fingers tightened around the porcelain. "He has already lost too much. What happened to his father?" Arthur looked toward the dark hallway. For a moment, Claire thought he would answer. Instead, he said, "Roman was 14 when he learned that a locked door means nothing if the man holding the key betrays you." A shadow moved beyond the archway. Roman stood there. He was fully dressed in a black suit, his tie perfectly knotted. Claire could not tell how long he had been listening. His face revealed nothing. Arthur looked towards him. The clarity faded almost instantly. "Carlo." Roman's eyes closed for half a second. When they opened, the pain was gone. "Good morning, Grandpa." Arthur smiled. "The harbor is closed." "So I heard. This girl called the Coast Guard." Roman looked at Claire. "I am sure she did." He approached Arthur slowly. "The floor is cold. You need both slippers." Arthur glanced down at his bare foot as if noticing it for the first time. "I lost one. We will find it." Roman knelt beside him. The movement looked strange from a man whose name emptied bars and changed votes. He adjusted the remaining slipper. Then he placed one hand beneath Arthur's elbow and helped him stand. His touch was gentle. Nothing about Roman's hand suggested the violence Claire had seen in the alley. Arthur leaned against him. "Carlo, your boy worries too much." Roman's jaw tightened. "Yes. He thinks everybody is coming for us." Roman looked at Claire over Arthur's shoulder. "Sometimes they are." He guided the old man toward the hall. At the archway, Roman stopped. "My office at 10 tonight." Claire folded her arms. Was that an invitation? Roman's expression remained unreadable. A conversation. Then he led Arthur away. At 10, Claire stood outside the heavy doors of Roman's office. She considered refusing. Instead, she entered. The room overlooked the bay. Shelves of dark leather books covered one wall. A fire burned behind an iron screen. Maps of shipping routes lay across a large desk beside several locked files. Roman stood near the window with a glass of bourbon. A second glass waited on the desk. Claire remained beside the door. "I do not drink with men who lock me in bedrooms." Roman lifted his glass. "I unlocked it this morning." Progress. He gestured toward a chair. Claire stayed standing. Roman did not insist. "You handled him well." Arthur handled himself. The nurses panic when he becomes confused. They correct him. He becomes angry, then frightened. They are trying to force him into their reality, and you lied. I gave him somewhere safe to stand. Roman looked toward the fire. My father's name was Carlo, I guessed. Maria was my grandmother. Claire waited. Roman rarely offered information without being asked. She sensed the effort behind every word. They died within 18 months of each other, he said. My grandmother from a stroke, my father from a bullet. Arthur was there. Yes. Roman took a slow drink. He found my father in a warehouse near the harbor. The room became quieter. Claire remembered Arthur asking for trucks at Pier 9. Was someone inside the family responsible? Roman's gaze returned to her. That is not a question you should ask. It is the question Arthur was trying to answer. He was not trying to answer anything. He said you were 14 when you learned locked doors do not matter if the man holding the key betrays you. Roman became motionless. Claire had the sensation of stepping onto ice and hearing it crack beneath her. He said that, yes. Roman set down his glass. He has not spoken about that night in years. Maybe he remembers more than you think. He remembers fragments. Fragments still cut. Roman looked at her for a long time. You cared for your mother. It was not a question. Claire's shoulders tightened. I told you not to talk about her like a file. I am asking you. The distinction mattered. Claire moved closer to the desk but did not sit. She was sick for 4 years. Near the end, the medicine confused her. Some mornings she thought I was 12. Sometimes she thought she was late for work. What did you do? At first, I corrected her. Claire looked at the untouched bourbon. I thought facts would bring her back. They only made her feel lost. Roman said nothing. So I stopped arguing. If she thought she had a shift, I told her the hospital had called and given her the day off. If she asked for my father, I said he was running late. Was he? He left when I was 6. Roman lowered his gaze. Claire continued before sympathy could enter the room. You learn that truth is not always the kindest thing you can give someone. Roman rested both palms against the desk. I owe you an apology. Claire stared at him. The words appeared to cost him something, for which part his mouth tightened. I brought you here and treated you as a security problem. You followed me. Yes. You investigated me. Yes. You took away my job. Yes. You locked me inside a room. Yes. Claire stepped closer. That is not one apology. No. Roman's voice lowered. It is several. The fire snapped behind the screen. Claire searched his face for mockery. There was none. I was wrong to remove your choices, he said. The admission felt more intimate than anything else he could have offered. Claire folded her arms. Are you saying I can leave the men from the alley were contractors? We traced the payment to a Sorrento intermediary. The immediate threat has been contained. Contained. They are dead. The bluntness of the answer chilled her. Roman did not soften it. Claire looked toward the window. You say that like you canceled a shipment. I am not asking you to approve. No, you only ask people to obey. Roman accepted the accusation without responding. You can return home tomorrow, he said. Claire looked back at him. A car will take you. Your apartment will be secured. The Blue Lantern can reopen under new ownership. Whose ownership? Yours, if you want it. No. I expected that answer. Then why offer? Because it should remain your decision. Claire studied him. He was learning. Slowly. Badly. But he was learning. Roman continued. Your medical debts will be paid, not as repayment. As compensation for the danger my attention created. No. His eyes narrowed. Claire raised a hand. I am not refusing the money. That surprised him. I am refusing the way you keep trying to give it. Roman waited. Claire thought about Arthur waking in a silent room surrounded by nurses who treated confusion like disobedience. She thought about the empty dining room, the untouched greenhouse, and the way Roman had knelt to put a slipper on his grandfather's foot. Who takes care of Arthur tomorrow? Roman's expression changed. The medical staff, they are doing a poor job. They are highly qualified. They talk to him like a child. You have known them for 4 days. I knew enough after 4 minutes. Roman moved around the desk. You are volunteering to stay. I am negotiating employment. His gaze sharpened. Claire placed both hands on the edge of the desk. You need someone to coordinate Arthur's care. Someone who understands confusion without humiliating him. Someone who can tell the nurses when their training is making the situation worse. And you believe that person is you. I cared for my mother for 4 years. I worked as a hospital aide. I know medication schedules. I know how to recognize dehydration, panic, and sundowning. Roman watched her. Claire continued. I want a real contract, a salary based on the work. Taxes, health insurance, my debt paid as a signing bonus. How much? All of it. Roman did not hesitate. Done. I am not finished. Something almost amused moved through his eyes. Claire counted the terms on her fingers. I choose Arthur's daily routine. I can replace any nurse who speaks to him like he is 5. I can leave the estate when I choose. You do not access my bank account, medical records, phone, or personal life without telling me. Security remains, at a distance. 2 vehicles, 1, 2, 1 visible. Roman considered her. The second remains out of sight. Claire held out her hand. Agreed. Roman looked at it. The scar across his knuckles caught the firelight. He closed his hand around hers. His palm was warm, rougher than she expected. His grip was controlled. Claire felt the strength he was deliberately not using. Your contract will be ready in the morning, he said. If I do not like it, I change it. You negotiate like a criminal. I learned from the man who kidnapped me. Roman released her hand. This time the smile appeared. Small, brief, real. You are difficult. You are welcome. The next morning, Claire began work. She dismissed Arthur's lead nurse before lunch. The woman had called him a good boy after he finished breakfast. Claire asked her to stop. The nurse laughed. Claire asked again. The nurse turned to Arthur and spoke more slowly as if volume could repair memory. Claire pointed toward the door. You are done. The nurse's face hardened. Mr. Bellini hired me. Mr. Bellini hired me to manage his care. You have no medical degree. I have a contract. The nurse looked toward the second-floor landing. Roman stood out above them. He had witnessed the entire exchange. The nurse called up to him. Mr. Bellini, are you allowing this? Roman looked at Claire. Claire did not move. Yes, he said. The nurse left before sunset. Over the following weeks, the house changed in ways no one announced. Claire moved Arthur's breakfast from his bedroom to the kitchen. She labeled old photographs with names and dates. She found radio broadcasts from the years he remembered best. She placed a wooden model of Baltimore Harbor on the kitchen table and asked him to identify the piers. Some days Arthur could not remember Claire's name. Other days he corrected Roman's shipping calculations from across the room. Claire gave him simple work that allowed him to feel useful. Folding napkins, sorting photographs, counting cards, choosing music for dinner. The staff stopped whispering around him. Margaret began serving meals in the dining room again. Daniel learned to play gin rummy. Even Ethan occasionally stood in the kitchen long enough to drink coffee. Roman remained the last person to change. He left before sunrise and returned long after dinner. Claire saw him only in fragments. A dark coat moving through the hall, a quiet voice behind office doors, blood on a white cuff, cold air following him into the house. One night, Claire sat on the library floor repairing a tear in Arthur's cashmere coat. The fire had burned low. The doors opened. Roman entered alone. His tie hung loose. His face looked pale with exhaustion. A thin line of dried blood marked the edge of his sleeve. Claire did not ask whose it was. Roman crossed to a leather chair and sat heavily. He closed his eyes. Claire threaded the needle through the lining. Arthur ate dinner. Roman's shoulders loosened slightly. He remembered your birthday. His eyes opened. What did he say? He said you cried because the cake had blue icing. Roman stared at her. I was 6. He also said you blamed the cook. I did. Claire smiled. Roman looked toward the coat in her lap. You repaired it. He refused to wear anything else. It belonged to my father. Claire tied the thread and cut it. That explains why he keeps checking the pockets. Roman lowered his gaze. The silence between them no longer felt hostile. Claire stood, walked to the bar cart, and poured bourbon into a clean glass. She placed it beside him. Roman looked at it, then at her. "You said you do not drink with men who lock doors." "I am not drinking." Claire picked up the coat. "And you stopped locking mine." She walked toward the exit. "Claire." She turned. Roman's hand rested beside the glass. "Thank you." The words were quieter than the fire. Claire nodded and left. Roman remained alone in the library. Above him, a small camera hidden near the ceiling went dark for 47 seconds. In the security room, Ethan watched the feed return. He checked the system log twice. No malfunction appeared. Someone with internal access had created a loop. Ethan reached for his phone. Outside the estate, beyond the stone wall and the black winter trees, a vehicle waited without lights. Inside, a man listened as a voice whispered through an encrypted connection. "She is staying." The line went silent. The car disappeared into the snow, but the silence it left behind did not. Inside the Bellini estate, the camera feed continued as if nothing had happened. The library remained empty. The fire burned low. Roman's glass of bourbon sat untouched beside the chair. In the security room beneath the east wing, Ethan Mercer stood before a wall of monitors and watched the same 47 seconds again. The footage showed Claire leaving the library. Roman remained seated. Then the image froze so smoothly that an ordinary guard might have missed it. The flames stopped moving. Snow paused beyond the windows. Roman's hand remained suspended beside the glass. 47 seconds later, the room came back to life. Ethan checked the camera system. No error appeared. No equipment failure. No unauthorized access. That was the problem. The person who created the loop had not broken into the system. They had entered with permission. Ethan picked up the secure phone. Roman answered on the second ring. "What, we have a breach." The word changed the air. Roman's voice became still. "Where internal surveillance, library camera, 47-second loop. When 6 minutes ago. Lock the property." Ethan looked across the screens. Without alerting the staff, especially without alerting the staff, the line ended. Ethan began closing the estate one invisible door at a time. Vehicle access was suspended. Staff identification cards were logged. All outside communications passed through the security network. Guards shifted positions without being told why. To anyone watching from the bedrooms or kitchen, the Bellini estate remained calm. Only the men carrying weapons knew that something inside the walls had changed. Claire knew nothing about the camera breach. She woke before sunrise and found Arthur already sitting at the kitchen table. He wore a brown cardigan over his pajamas. A deck of cards lay between his hands. Margaret stood near the stove, quietly preparing coffee. Arthur looked up when Claire entered. "You are late." Claire glanced at the clock. "It is 5:30. The ships do not wait for people who sleep. The ships are frozen to the harbor." Arthur frowned. "Then somebody should have brought better ships." Claire sat across from him. "What are we playing, Gin?" "You cheated yesterday. I won yesterday. You palmed the Queen of Hearts." Arthur's face remained innocent. "My hands shake. Cards move." Margaret turned away to hide a smile. Claire dealt. They played 3 rounds while daylight slowly gathered beyond the windows. Arthur won 2. Claire watched his fingers carefully and caught him hiding a card beneath his sleeve. She did not expose him. Winning made him happy. Remembering how to cheat made him feel like himself. Roman entered as Arthur laid down his final hand. He looked as if he had not slept. His suit was immaculate, but the skin beneath his eyes had darkened. Ethan followed several steps behind. Arthur held up his cards. "She is terrible at this." Claire gathered the deck. "He cheats." Roman looked at his grandfather. "Good." Arthur smiled. Claire noticed Ethan scanning the room. His eyes moved from the windows to the kitchen staff, then toward the service entrance. "What happened?" Claire asked. Roman poured coffee. "Nothing." That answer usually means something happened. Roman looked at her. The moment stretched. Ethan spoke before Roman could. "We found a technical issue with one camera." Claire turned toward him. "What kind of issue? A recording loop?" She remembered the cameras hidden throughout the estate. "Someone covered a room, for less than a minute." Which room? Roman lifted his cup. The library. Claire looked at him. While I was there. Yes. Arthur continued sorting the cards as though none of it mattered. Claire lowered her voice. Who has access? Too many people, Ethan said. Roman's expression hardened. Not for long. Claire looked around the kitchen. Margaret stood near the stove. 2 cooks worked at the far counter. Daniel waited beside the hallway. All of them had heard. All of them knew Roman suspected someone inside the house. Fear moved through the room without touching a single face. Roman set down his coffee. Claire, take Arthur to the greenhouse after breakfast. She heard the order beneath the ordinary words. Why? Because the kitchen staff will be questioned. Margaret became still. Claire looked at her. Roman noticed. No one is being accused, yet. No, Arthur placed the deck on the table. Someone stole from you. Roman looked toward him. Arthur's eyes had sharpened. Not money, Arthur continued. Something worse. Roman pulled out the chair beside him. What do you remember? Arthur stared at the cards. Men who steal money run. Men who steal doors stay close enough to use them. Claire felt cold despite the warmth of the kitchen. Roman exchanged a look with Ethan. Arthur's clarity vanished as quickly as it had arrived. He pointed toward Claire. Deal again. Roman remained seated for several seconds. Then he stood. Take him to the greenhouse. This time Claire did not argue. She helped Arthur with his coat and guided him through the glass corridor at the back of the estate. The greenhouse was warm and damp, filled with winter roses, herbs, and small citrus trees. Snow pressed against the curved glass roof. Arthur settled into a chair beside a wooden table. Claire placed the harbor model in front of him. It had become one of his favorite things. Every pier was carved in miniature. Tiny cargo ships rested in blue-painted channels. Arthur moved one vessel toward Pier 9. This one is late. Storm delay. No. Bad captain. Claire sat beside him. Through the greenhouse glass, she saw security teams crossing the garden. They moved quickly, but without panic. Roman had turned the estate into a sealed machine. No one entered. No one left. Arthur placed another ship beside the first. He thinks the walls protect him. Claire knew who he meant. Roman Arthur did not answer. He studied the model. When Roman was a boy, he used to sleep beneath my desk. Claire waited. Arthur's voice was clear but distant. His mother traveled. His father worked nights. Roman hated empty rooms. Claire had never heard Roman speak of his mother. Where is she now? Arthur moved a small truck along the model road. Gone. The word held no explanation. Arthur's finger stopped beside the carved warehouse. Carlo trusted the wrong man. Claire leaned closer. The man who killed him. Arthur's breathing changed. His hand began trembling. Not killed. What happened opened. The glass door behind them moved. Claire turned. A guard she did not recognize stood in the corridor. He wore the same black suit as the others. An identification badge hung from his jacket. He looked toward Arthur, then toward Claire. Miss Donovan, Mr. Mercer needs you in the East Hall. Claire did not move. Why, he did not say. Arthur continued staring at the harbor model. Claire looked at the guard's shoes. Wet snow covered the edges. The greenhouse corridor connected directly to the main house. Anyone coming from inside would have crossed dry marble. You came from outside. The guard glanced down. Only for a second. That was enough. Claire stood. Daniel is assigned to us this morning. He was reassigned. By whom? The guard's hand moved toward his jacket. Claire seized the wooden harbor model and threw it. The carved ships scattered across the floor. The guard lifted one arm to protect his face. Claire grabbed Arthur's chair and shoved it against him. Run. Arthur did not understand. Claire pulled him toward the rear potting room. The guard caught the chair and sent it crashing aside. His hand emerged holding a suppressed pistol. Claire slammed the potting room door and turned the lock. The first bullet struck the glass panel beside her head. The sound was smaller than she expected. A dull cough. A white star spread through the glass. Arthur stared at it. The docks, he whispered. Claire dragged a heavy metal shelf in front of the door. Arthur, listen to me. Another bullet struck. The lock bent. We have to go. There is no road. There is a service exit. She had found it during her first days in the estate. A narrow maintenance door behind the fertilizer cabinets led to the lower garden. Claire pushed aside the containers and found the handle. An alarm began vibrating through the floor. Not a siren. A low mechanical pulse. Red lights appeared along the greenhouse corridor. The estate had realized the stranger was inside. Claire opened the service door. Cold air exploded into the room. Snow crossed the floor. Arthur stepped back. No. Claire took his face between her hands. Arthur, look at me. His eyes moved toward hers. The harbor is under attack. The words reached a part of him that fear could not. His posture changed. Which pier north side? Then we use the lower road. Claire nodded. Yes. You show me. The door behind them cracked. The armed man was almost through. Claire wrapped Arthur's coat around him and guided him into the storm. They moved down the garden steps. Arthur leaned heavily against her. Gunfire broke somewhere near the front of the estate. This time it was not suppressed. The sound rolled through the stone walls. Claire looked back. Black smoke rose beyond the east gate. Vehicles moved between the trees. The attack had already begun. Inside the main house, Roman heard the first explosion through the windows of his office. The floor shook. A glass fell from the desk and shattered. Ethan's voice filled Roman's earpiece. East gate compromised. 3 vehicles inside the outer wall. Roman drew the pistol beneath his jacket. Arthur, greenhouse team is not responding. Roman's blood went cold. Claire, no signal. Roman moved toward the hall. Lock the lower tunnels. Send Daniel to the greenhouse. The west corridor is under fire. Then send someone else. Roman entered the staircase landing. Guards rushed through the foyer below. Weapons came out from behind hidden panels. Steel shutters began descending across the windows. The estate transformed around him. Paintings disappeared behind armor. Doors sealed. Lights changed from warm gold to red. Roman descended the stairs. A man near the front entrance shouted that the surveillance grid had failed. Another reported movement near the north garden. Roman heard only one thing. Greenhouse team is not responding. He reached the foyer as the front doors exploded inward. Wood and metal tore across the marble. Cold air filled the house. Gunfire followed. Roman moved behind a stone column and returned fire. The first attacker fell before crossing the threshold. The second reached the staircase and collapsed against the railing. Ethan entered from the west hall. They have valid internal codes. Who issued them? Communications office. Find the officer. Already missing. Roman changed magazines. The attack was not designed to kill everyone. Victor wanted the estate open. The camera loop had been a test. The traitor had confirmed the system could be controlled. Now, men were entering through gates Roman had believed belonged only to him. A guard ran from the rear corridor. Mr. Bellini, we lost visual on Arthur. Roman grabbed the man by the front of his vest. Where greenhouse service exit. Roman released him. Ethan, take the house. Roman, take the house. You cannot go outside alone. Roman looked toward the north windows. More shots cracked across the garden. I am not leaving them there. He moved before Ethan could stop him. Claire and Arthur had reached the lower hedge when the first attacker appeared behind them. The man came through the greenhouse service door with his pistol raised. Claire pushed Arthur behind a stone planter. The attacker fired. The bullet struck the planter and sent fragments across Claire's face. She grabbed the only object within reach, a metal garden spade. The man came down the steps. Claire waited until he moved around the planter. Then she swung. The edge struck his wrist. The pistol dropped into the snow. He hit Claire in the shoulder and drove her backward. Pain ran down her arm. She held on to the spade. He reached for the weapon. Arthur stepped from behind the planter. In his hands was one of the small wooden ships from the harbor model. He struck the attacker across the temple. It did almost nothing. The man turned toward him. Claire drove the spade into the side of his knee. He fell with a scream. She kicked the pistol away and pulled Arthur forward. Move. Arthur looked at the fallen man. Bad captain. Yes. They reached the lower garden path. Daniel appeared through the snow with 2 guards behind him. Claire. She raised the spade before recognizing him. Daniel lowered his weapon. It is me. How do I know? His face tightened. You told me I looked embarrassed following women to breakfast. Claire released a breath. Take Arthur. Daniel stepped closer. Arthur resisted. No, the harbor. Daniel looked at Claire. She placed Arthur's hand on his arm. Daniel knows the lower road. Arthur studied the young guard. Do you? Daniel nodded. Yes, sir. Then do not get lost. Daniel led him toward the underground safe room. Claire followed. A burst of gunfire sounded from the tree line. One guard fell. The second returned fire. Daniel pushed Arthur behind a low wall. Claire dropped beside them. Men moved between the trees. They wore white camouflage over dark tactical gear. The attack had been planned for the storm. Roman appeared on the upper path. He fired twice. 2 men vanished behind the trees. Claire saw him through the snow. His suit jacket was open. Blood marked one sleeve, though she could not tell whether it belonged to him. Roman. He turned toward her. For 1 second, relief changed his face. Then he saw the movement behind her. Down. Claire threw herself over Arthur. Roman fired. A man near the greenhouse fell. Ethan's voice shouted through Roman's radio. Vehicles retreating toward the east road. Roman looked toward Daniel. "Get Arthur underground." Daniel helped the old man stand. Arthur reached for Claire. "She comes." "I am coming," Claire said. Roman caught her arm. "No." Claire pulled free. "Do not start. The safe room is below the chapel. Go with him. What about you? I am ending this." Another explosion struck near the garage. Roman moved closer. His hands closed around Claire's shoulders. "For once in your life, do what I tell you." Snow gathered in her hair. Gunfire echoed through the trees. Claire looked into his face. "For once in yours, ask." Roman became still. The battle continued around them, but the space between them went silent. His grip loosened. "Please." The word barely carried through the wind. Claire nodded. She turned and followed Daniel. Roman watched until the 3 of them disappeared through the lower entrance. Then he faced the trees. Inside the safe room, Arthur began to panic. The underground chamber was built from reinforced concrete and steel. Emergency lights glowed along the ceiling. Medical supplies, water weapons, and communication equipment lined the walls. No windows. No natural sound. Only the distant vibration of gunfire traveling through stone. Arthur pressed both hands against his ears. "Open the door." Claire stood in front of him. "We cannot. My son is outside. Roman is outside. Carlo." His breath came too quickly. Claire looked toward the table. Daniel had carried the wooden harbor model into the room. Several ships were missing, but the docks remained intact. She placed it in front of Arthur. "The harbor needs you." Arthur stared at it. "Pier 9 is open. Show me where the trucks enter." His hands hovered over the model. Claire guided one finger toward the carved road. "Here, no." Arthur pushed her hand away. "Not there. That gate is watched." His breathing slowed slightly. He moved a truck towards a narrow channel beneath the warehouse. "This tunnel." Daniel stepped closer. "What tunnel?" Arthur tapped the model. "Service road. Built before the stone house." Daniel looked at Claire. "The lower access tunnel was sealed 8 years ago." Arthur shook his head. "Not sealed." His eyes became clear. "Carlo used it." Claire felt the meaning before he spoke again. The man with the key opened it. Daniel raised his radio. Ethan checked the Old North Tunnel. Static answered. Then Ethan's voice broke through. "Who told you, Arthur?" A pause. "Sending a team." Arthur traced the road with one trembling finger. "Communications officer." Claire leaned closer. "What about him, Thomas Vale?" Daniel's face changed. Thomas Vale had managed encrypted communications for the Bellini organization for 11 years. "He opened the warehouse for Carlo," Arthur said. "He opened the gate tonight." The safe room door vibrated. Someone had entered the lower corridor. Daniel raised his weapon. Claire moved Arthur behind the steel table. The lock display flashed red. A code was entered from outside. The first sequence failed. The second did not. The door began to open. Daniel aimed. A man appeared in the narrow gap. He wore a Bellini security uniform. Daniel did not hesitate. The shot struck the man in the shoulder and threw him against the corridor wall. Another attacker fired through the opening. Daniel fell backward. Claire dragged Arthur beneath the table. The door continued opening. The wounded man outside reached for his weapon. Claire seized Daniel's pistol from the floor. She had never fired one. The weight felt wrong in her hand. She pointed toward the doorway. The attacker saw her uncertainty. He smiled. Then Arthur spoke from beneath the table, both hands. Claire tightened her grip, front sight. She lifted the barrel. "Breathe out." The attacker raised his weapon. Claire fired. The sound filled the chamber. The man fell. Claire stared at him. Her arms remained extended. Arthur touched her wrist. "Lower it." She did. Daniel groaned near the wall. The bullet had struck his vest. Claire crawled to him. "Are you hurt, my ribs?" He forced himself upright and closed the safe room door. Arthur sat beside the harbor model. His clarity remained. "Thomas Vale," he repeated. Daniel transmitted the name to Ethan. This time the answer came immediately. "We found him at the North Tunnel." Gunfire sounded through the radio. Then silence. Ethan spoke again. "He is alive." Arthur closed his eyes. "Ask him about Carlo." Claire looked at him. The old man's face seemed to age years in a single breath. Outside, Roman moved through the North Woods with 4 guards. Sorrento's remaining men were retreating toward the road. Roman had taken a bullet through the upper arm, but the wound was clean. He ignored it. He saw the final vehicle near the trees. Victor Sorrento stood beside the open rear door. Even in the storm, Victor wore a tailored coat and polished shoes. Roman raised his pistol. Victor did not move. "You built a beautiful house," Victor called. Roman continued forward. "You should not have entered it." Victor smiled. "You invited weakness inside." Roman fired. Victor moved behind the vehicle. His men returned fire. One bullet struck Roman's shoulder and passed through. The second entered low beneath his ribs. He felt the impact before the pain. His body turned. The ground rose toward him. Roman landed in the snow. His pistol remained in his hand. Victor stepped from behind the vehicle. Roman fired from the ground. The bullet struck Victor in the chest. Victor staggered against the door. Roman fired again. Victor collapsed beside the wheel. The remaining attackers fled into the trees. Ethan reached Roman seconds later. Blood spread across the snow beneath him. "Stay awake." Roman tried to stand. His legs failed. Arthur, safe. Claire, safe. Roman closed his eyes. Ethan struck his face. "Do not do that." Roman opened them again. "Get me inside." The guards lifted him. By the time the safe room door opened, the attack had ended. Claire helped Arthur into the corridor. Daniel walked beside them with one hand pressed against his ribs. A guard approached at a run. "Mr. Bellini is hurt." Claire stopped. How badly the guard looked away. That answer was enough. She left Arthur with Daniel and ran. The estate had become a field hospital. Broken glass covered the floors. Blood marked the marble. Cold wind entered through the destroyed front doors. Men shouted into radios. Others carried the wounded toward the medical wing. Claire reached the foyer as Ethan and 2 guards brought Roman inside. His head hung forward. His suit was soaked dark from his ribs to his thigh. Claire's body went cold. Roman, his eyes opened. They struggled to focus on her. "You were supposed to stay downstairs." Claire moved beneath his free arm. "Shut up." His weight nearly drove her to the floor. She braced her legs and helped carry him towards the medical room. Roman's blood warmed her shirt. "Arthur," he whispered. "Safe. The tunnel." He remembered. Roman tried to speak again. His knees gave way. Ethan caught him. They reached the medical room and lowered him onto the examination table. Dr. Shaw cut through the suit jacket. The first wound passed cleanly through the shoulder. The second had entered the lower abdomen. Blood pulsed through the torn fabric. Dr. Shaw's face changed. Pressure. Nobody moved quickly enough. Claire grabbed sterile gauze and pressed both hands against the wound. Roman arched beneath her. A raw sound escaped his throat. His bloody hand closed around her wrist. "Look at me," Claire said. His eyes were unfocused. "Roman, they found her. Do not close them." Dr. Shaw prepared instruments beside the table. "The bullet damaged an artery. I have to control the bleeding before we move him. Can you—" "I can try." Roman's fingers tightened around Claire. "Take Arthur," he whispered. "Leave Baltimore. No, if I die." "You are not dying. That is an order." Claire pressed harder. Roman's face twisted with pain. She leaned close enough for him to hear her over the movement in the room. "Then consider this my first act of insubordination." Dr. Shaw began working. Roman's body went rigid. The guards held his shoulders and legs. Claire kept pressure on the wound. Blood soaked through the gauze and ran between her fingers. "Stay with me." Roman's breathing came in short, broken pulls. Claire searched for anything that could keep him anchored. Arthur cheated at gin again. Roman's eyes moved toward hers. He hid the Queen of Hearts in his sleeve. A faint sound came from Roman. It might have been a laugh. Claire continued. Margaret knows, Daniel knows. Nobody says anything because your grandfather is a criminal. Roman's mouth moved. So are you. I am underpaid. You negotiated. I made a mistake. Dr. Shaw reached deeper into the wound. Roman's grip became crushing. Claire did not pull away. Look at me. His eyes remained on hers. You promised me doors that open from both sides. Roman's breathing weakened. You do not get to die before I test them. Dr. Shaw called for a clamp. Metal struck metal. The room filled with the smell of blood and antiseptic. Claire felt Roman's hand begin to loosen. She raised her voice. Roman. His eyelids lowered. She leaned closer. Your grandfather needs you. No response. Claire's voice broke. I need you. Roman's eyes opened. Only slightly, but they opened. Dr. Shaw found the damaged vessel. I have it. The bleeding slowed. Roman exhaled. His body lost its rigid tension. The machines beside the table found a steadier rhythm. Dr. Shaw looked toward Claire. He is not safe yet, but he has a chance. Roman's fingers slipped from her wrist. His hand fell beside him. Claire remained over the wound until Dr. Shaw replaced her hands with his own. Then she stepped back. Her shirt was covered in blood. So were her arms. She walked to the sink. The water ran pink around her fingers. Claire scrubbed beneath her nails. She could still feel Roman's pulse against her palms. Behind her, Dr. Shaw continued working. Ethan entered the room. Blood marked his collar, but he appeared uninjured. Victor Sorrento is dead, he said. Claire kept washing her hands. Thomas Vale alive. Arthur said to ask him about Carlo. Ethan became silent. Claire turned off the water. What did he say? Ethan looked through the glass toward Roman. Vale opened the warehouse the night Roman's father died. He sold the location to Sorrento's predecessor. Claire looked toward the hallway. Arthur sat in a chair beyond the door, wrapped in a blanket. He stared at the floor. For years, his damaged memory had carried the name of the man who betrayed his son. Tonight, the past had entered the house again. This time, Arthur had remembered in time. Claire walked toward him. She knelt beside the chair. Arthur lifted his eyes. Roman Dr. Shaw is helping him. Carlo Claire took his hand. The clarity was gone. She could not bring herself to correct him. He is not alone. Arthur nodded. That is good. He leaned back and closed his eyes. Claire remained beside him while the storm weakened beyond the broken windows. The estate had survived. The walls still stood. The gates could be rebuilt. The dead could be removed before daylight. But the house no longer felt invincible. Blood stained the marble. Smoke darkened the ceiling. A traitor had carried a key for decades. Through the medical room glass, Claire watched Dr. Shaw work over Roman's motionless body. Roman had spent his life believing safety came from controlling every door. In the end, the doors had failed. The only thing keeping him alive was the woman he had once refused to trust. The woman Roman Bellini had once refused to trust remained beside his bed until the machines stopped warning that he might die. 30 hours passed before he opened his eyes. Claire was asleep in a chair near the window, one hand resting beside an untouched cup of coffee. Her clothes had been replaced, but a dark stain remained beneath one fingernail where his blood had resisted the soap. Roman tried to move. Pain tore through his abdomen. The monitor beside him changed rhythm. Claire woke immediately. Do not. Roman looked toward the bandages beneath his open shirt. How long? 30 hours. Arthur safe. Ethan bruised, angry, and already frightening the staff. Roman closed his eyes for 1 second. Sorrento dead. Vale alive. Claire stood and poured water into a glass. Roman watched her cross the room. You should be sleeping. So should you. I have work. You have stitches. She held out the glass. Roman did not take it. Claire raised one eyebrow. You were shot twice. This is not the moment to prove you are stronger than water. He accepted the glass. His fingers were weak enough to make him hate the movement. Claire noticed, but did not offer to help. Roman drank. Vale confessed, she said. He opened the warehouse the night your father died. He also provided Sorrento with access codes for the estate. Roman's face became unreadable. He worked for my grandfather for 30 years. Arthur remembered his name. He remembered too late. He remembered in time to save us. Roman looked toward the wall. Outside the room, men spoke quietly in the corridor. Repairs had already begun throughout the estate. Broken windows were covered. Blood had been removed from the marble. The house was attempting to erase the attack before Roman could see what it had done. Claire placed the glass on the tray. Arthur asked for Carlo. Roman's jaw tightened. "What did you tell him that he was not alone?" Roman looked at her. "Thank you." The words no longer sounded foreign in his mouth. They sounded tired. Claire pulled the chair closer and sat. "You almost died because someone you trusted carried a key you never questioned. I trusted the system. No, you trusted fear." Roman's gaze hardened. Claire did not look away. "You believed no one would betray you because they were afraid of what you would do. They had good reason. It still happened." Roman leaned back against the pillows. "Are you here to supervise my recovery or criticize my organization? Both. The contract is flexible." Something faint moved at the edge of his mouth. Then pain tightened his face. Claire reached toward him but stopped before touching his shoulder. Roman noticed the hesitation. The night he brought her to the estate, he had locked her behind a door and called it protection. Now she waited for permission before helping him sit upright. The difference shamed him. "You can touch me," he said. Claire adjusted the pillow behind his back. Her hands were careful. Roman watched her face. "You should leave Baltimore." Claire stopped. He reached toward the cabinet beside the bed and pressed a button. A concealed drawer opened. Inside rested a thick folder. Roman lifted it and placed it on the blanket. "What is that? A passport, a new identity, a property deed, banking documents." Claire opened the folder. The photograph on the passport was hers. The name was not. A house on the coast of Maine belonged to the woman printed on the page. So did a small restaurant near the water and a bank account containing enough money to make every bill Claire had ever feared disappear. She looked at Roman. "You prepared this before the attack. I began after the alley. You planned to send me away. I prepared an option. You do not prepare options. You prepare decisions." Roman accepted the accusation. "This one is yours." Claire turned another page. The documents were complete. No hidden obligation, no Bellini name, no visible connection to Baltimore. "I arranged long-term care for Arthur," Roman said. "The medical team will be replaced. Margaret will supervise the household. You are dismissing me. I am releasing you. I never belonged to you." Roman's expression tightened. "I know." Claire closed the folder. "Do you?" "Yes." His voice lowered. "That is why you need to go before someone else decides you do." Claire studied him. Roman Bellini could order men into gunfire without changing his tone. He could purchase buildings, close roads, and erase enemies from the city. Yet he could not look directly at her while offering freedom. "You are afraid." Roman's eyes returned to hers. "No. You bought Patrick's debt because you were afraid the bar was unsafe. You locked me inside this house because you were afraid Sorrento would take me. Now you are trying to send me away because you are afraid someone will succeed. I am trying to keep you alive. By removing me from your life." "Yes." The honesty silenced the room. Claire placed the folder beside the water. "If I leave you, never have to wonder whether my blood will end up on your hands." Roman said nothing. "You can return to the harbor. You can rebuild the gates. You can make everyone afraid enough that no one tests them for another 10 years. That is the safest outcome." "For whom? For you." Claire stood. Roman watched her, believing the decision had been made. She walked toward the door. Then she turned the lock. It opened from the inside. Claire looked back at him. "You kept that promise." Roman followed her gaze. No more locked doors. She returned to the bed. "I am not going to Maine." His face hardened. "Claire, I am not staying because Arthur needs me. He does. I know. I am not staying because you paid my debts. You earned that money. I know." She moved closer. "I am staying because leaving would be another choice made by fear." Roman's hand closed around the edge of the blanket. "You saw what happened here. Yes. You held an artery closed while Shaw pulled a bullet from my body. I remember. There will be other men like Sorrento. Then improve your security. This is not a joke. Neither am I." Claire placed both hands on the bed rail. "But I have terms." Roman let out a quiet breath. "Of course you do. No more entering my records without permission. Agreed. No changing my job, home, or finances because you think you know what is best. Agreed. No guards inside my apartment. One outside. Across the street, inside the building. Lobby." Roman considered it. "Lobby." Claire continued. You ask before you make decisions that involve me. That may not always be possible. Then you explain afterward and you accept that I may walk away. Roman looked at the folder beside him. You could walk away now. I know. The words settled between them. For the first time, Claire could leave. For the first time, Roman had no weapon, money, locked door, or threat standing between her and the outside world. She remained beside him. Roman lifted one hand. He stopped before touching her face. Claire saw the question in the movement. She closed the distance herself. His fingers rested carefully against her cheek near the pale scar left by the alley. You still fear me, he said. Sometimes. You should. Probably. Roman's thumb moved once across her skin. Then why are you here? Claire looked at the man beneath the title, the money, and the violence. Because fear is not the only thing I feel. Roman's control broke quietly. No command, no declaration. He drew her closer only after her hand closed around his shirt. Their kiss was careful at first. Roman was weak, and Claire refused to let him pretend otherwise. His hand settled at the back of her neck. Hers rested over his heart. The monitor accelerated. Claire pulled away. Roman opened his eyes. Your heart rate is too high. You caused it. I am your care coordinator. For Arthur, I am expanding my responsibilities. Roman almost laughed. The sound became a wince. Claire pushed him back against the pillows. Rest. That was an order. Yes. He closed his eyes. This time he obeyed. Several days later, Arthur sat in the greenhouse beneath the weak winter sun. The wooden harbor model had been repaired. One ship still carried a crack where it had struck the false guard. Claire poured coffee while Roman lowered himself into the chair opposite his grandfather. He moved carefully. Dr. Shaw had forbidden stairs, long meetings, and every activity Roman considered necessary. Arthur studied the bandage beneath Roman's shirt. You were careless. Roman looked at Claire. She agrees. I said reckless. You said several things. Arthur lifted his cup. His hands trembled, but his eyes were clear. He looked toward Claire. I remember the grocery store. She sat beside him. You wanted milk. I had money. You were short $4.18. Arthur smiled. I knew you were poor. Claire blinked. That is rude. You counted the bills before you gave one away. Roman watched his grandfather. Arthur continued. I knew Roman would find you. You told me he never left debts unpaid. He does not. Roman's expression changed. Did you leave the security detail deliberately? Arthur looked toward the snow beyond the glass. For a moment, the old man who had built the Bellini empire returned. I wanted milk. It was not an answer. It was the only answer he intended to give. Arthur looked at Roman. You built walls. Roman lowered his gaze. Yes. You finally opened a door. Roman glanced at Claire. She broke it. Arthur smiled. Better. The clarity faded slowly. He began rearranging the ships and asking when Carlo would arrive. Claire did not correct him. Roman reached across the table and moved a cargo vessel toward Pier 9. He is running late, Roman said. Arthur nodded. He always does. 3 months later, the first signs of spring appeared along the Chesapeake. Repairs to the estate were complete, but the house no longer looked the same. Family photographs filled the hallway. Music played in the kitchen. Arthur ate breakfast with the staff instead of alone in his room. Claire continued coordinating his care. She also began developing a training program for families caring for people with dementia. Roman provided the funding. Claire owned the organization. The Blue Lantern reopened under employee ownership. Patrick Doyle left Baltimore after selling his remaining interest. Tommy still complained that the water tasted like water. Roman had not become gentle. He remained feared throughout the harbor. Men still lowered their voices when speaking his name. Meetings still ended with decisions Claire did not always approve, but he knocked before entering her room. He asked before changing her plans. When they disagreed, he listened instead of closing a door. One morning, Arthur spilled coffee across the kitchen table. Roman reached for a cloth before any member of the staff could move. He wiped the coffee from his grandfather's hands and replaced the wet cup. Arthur looked at Claire. Did I repay you for the groceries? Claire glanced at Roman. No. Arthur frowned. That is unlike us. Roman placed a fresh cup in front of Claire. Some debts should remain open. Claire wrapped her hands around the warm porcelain. Outside, guards continued patrolling the walls. The cameras continued turning. The harbor remained dangerous. Inside, sunlight crossed the table while Arthur accused Roman of cheating at cards. The fortress had not disappeared. It had become a home. Claire had spent $4.18 helping an old man keep his dignity. Roman Bellini had offered her money, safety, and an entirely new life. None of it made her stay. She stayed only after he placed the key in her hand and trusted her to use it.